obviously, for those who will be watching later, and for my own sake of sanity, this is the formal. We'll do a formal start here. I think some folks will still be. I'll just keep an eye. I might be a tiny bit distracted as I keep my eye on the participants, because, as I said off screen, Zoom lied to me. This webinar, this moment that we're getting together, sharing, it's such a refreshing thing for me to begin by saying, I'm not a marketing expert. I'm not an engagement expert. I'm not an expert on algorithms or social media. In fact, I find the whole landscape extremely confounding. But what I am is a philosopher with an enormous amount of experience in human behavior. Hey, Bethany. And I've got a shared problem, I believe, which is not just mine. I believe it's everyone's problem, or people of our stripe. They're souls of a certain stripe who are trying to make a living in the world. And the biggest challenge in that is how we reach and connect with and engage with our people. Because even though the marketplace, the shared marketplace that we have to do this in, is technically so wonderful, the technology is amazing, the reach is, when in human history have we ever been sitting with the ability to reach millions of people across the planet, have one thing that we say touch millions of people automatically? But by the same token, that same marketplace is completely overwhelmed. And it's complex. It's not simple to understand. And somebody of alignment and calling like myself, and I'm assuming the folks that will be paying attention to this over time, are trying to understand how to solve this reach problem, but in a way that aligns with our soul. And of course, one of the biggest problems is when you encounter someone who says they have the answer. Because if somebody says they know what success looks like in this space, we'll talk about it in a moment, but they're either dishonest, or they're confused, or they're full of shit. Because the example that I use is if we took someone like Joe Rogan, who's unarguably the biggest podcast host in the world, and we said to ourselves, Joe, let's sit you down and let's get a bunch of note takers and technical specialists and on the one side, and ask you exactly what it would take to create the world's most popular podcast. And on the other side, you get marketing specialists. Let's pick one. If you take the marketing specialists, they'll say, well, you need to have this kind of camera, you need to have this kind of studio, you need to have this kind of flow and formula, this is how you need to advertise, this is how you need to put your hashtags on, you need to be choosing a niche that no one else has, you need to be... And all of this would be the orthodoxy of what we need to do. And then you go to Joe Rogan, he would say, I did none of those things. So here you've got the living proof on the one side, and there you've got all the experts, and they'll be fighting amongst themselves as to what to do. And the further irony, which is what we're going to be talking about today, is if you took Joe Rogan and you sat him down and said, all right, Joe, you tell us what you thought was your recipe for success that other people should emulate, young and upcoming podcasters. He'll list a bunch of things, and it's very unlikely that he would be disingenuous. Some people would be disingenuous if you ask them, but it would be very unlikely that he would be. So he would probably tell you everything that he thought contributed to his success. Now, it depends how self-aware the person is that we're asking, because what actually contributed towards their success may have been their comedian career, or their friends, the quality of friends that they were able to invite, or the fact that they were early adopters into new technology for which there was very little competition. And when you do ask people what success entails, the chances of us getting an answer that can actually matter to us, that if we emulated it or repeated it, would make a difference. And therein is where I found my challenge. I still have the problem. I still need to make a living in the world, as do we all. And I still have this challenge, and I'm sick and tired of the way that things are and have been done. The bro funnels, the aggressive sales marketing tactics, it's just distasteful, and it cannot live alongside somebody who has a serious spiritual vocation and calling. We don't want to be operating like that. We don't want to reduce what is, if essentially, a craft down to a numbers game. But there's a lot of lessons that I have learned in the meantime. And what I'm trying to do, and what we'll get into today, is let me show you what I do know. Let me show you what it happens when you get a neurodivergent process engineer with a gift for psychology and philosophy, and you say to them, look at this problem, what's going on, what would you do? And I want to step through that journey with everyone. Jim is my collaborator. He's on the call. And Jim and I are actually starting a project called A Better Way / The Journey, because A Better Way is going to be the vehicle for looking at all kinds of things that are unwell in business and seeing if we can find a better way. And the journey is going to be a collaborative exercise with the kind of people who want to be on this journey and want to be part of the solution, who want to join us on this journey and discover what we discover along the way. So I'm going to share my screen quickly and take you through where we are. And what we're going to share with you is the lessons that we have learned, and some tips and tricks that we think really matter, and invite everybody into a collaborative circle or community. You don't have to be fully active, but if you want to contribute, your contribution will be welcome, on how we develop an evolving operating manual for humans who are seeking alignment of business and engagement with soul and calling. In other words, I don't want to sell the one out in the service of the other. And amen, especially to the bro funnels. Thank you, Simon. So what do we got? It's very important that we understand what soul means and what reach means, because I'm saying we're trying to solve the reach problem, and I'm saying we're going to be trying to do it through soul alignment. And I want to be very clear what those two terms mean. And for me, soul is nothing more than the human capacity and thirst for connection, for belonging, purpose. And these are the things through which we derive all meaning in life. And if this can't be what we're aiming at, then I'm not sure I want to do the aiming.
Well,
I'll just keep an eye on anyone who's joining.
well,
Is somebody talking up? No. And then reach. We know we're trying to reach our people, and we're trying to reach an audience, and we're trying to reach our goals and destinations. And to reach, really, the framing that we're going to use today is to aim for something beyond ourselves, but also our arrival there. Now, that said, I have been on more webinars than I can count. And there's not a single webinar that I've been on in my life that I found that I can say with confidence and with sincerity that I walked away with more than it took from me to be there. I hated webinars when I was in corporate. I was in corporate for 27 years. So what I would like to invite everyone to do is to realize that this is supposed to be interactive. This is a human connection thing. And ask questions, chime in, get involved, say your piece. I'd like there to be a certain degree of flow to what we have to share today, Jim and I. But I don't want this to be me talking at you or talking at a camera, because that's exactly the thing that kills connection and vitality and a sense of belonging. And it would erode the purpose that I intended to be doing this with. So what you're looking at there, we don't have to go through in detail. That's really just what will form the heading of the headings of the booklet that we'll be putting together and sharing on the back of this. And as I said, it'll be a growing booklet. But maybe a small introduction about who I am. This is for people on the call who don't know who I am and who haven't worked with me before, and also for the folks who'll be watching later. And you can see in the person, in the center, there's not a very flattering or glamorous photo of myself, but it's also a truth about myself. It's a truth about myself. And so we'll go sort of in a zigzag shape around that. It's what I do. I'm actually a poet, an engineer, a philosopher. I'm a speaker, I'm a teacher, I'm a designer, and I'm a writer. And how I'm configured at 6 o'clock is I'm an autodidact. I'm self-taught on everything that I know. I'm neurodivergent, which means I'm not autistic or Aspergic, but I'm something in that territory, as yet undiagnosed. But I've got my own very, very different wiring in how I see the world. I'm a polymath, which means I'm into and very nerdy about many, many things. My professional career and my lessons in life, a lot of them arrived through corporate. And a big part of how I'm configured is the sense of self-ownership. And my experience, I come from a very rich experience with divorce, grief, abuse, immigration, violence, a 27-year corporate career, and psychedelics. And my why, I think, is the most important thing about why we're on this call, is I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a mystic. My why is very much focused around self-love, and I strongly believe, implicitly believe, in the human potential, which is why I believe there's a better way, or the way that we're doing things at the moment cannot be the only way. And at the heart of it, I'm vulnerable, I'm blunt, and I'm radically honest. And I'm beginning to appreciate that this truth probably is going to help me connect better with people than any trick on social media or any marketing trick that I could conceive or listen to or apply. So just to bring everybody along for the journey, I hope you look at that picture and you feel overwhelmed, because when I drew it, I felt overwhelmed. But this is, in fact, the overwhelming reality of what we need to do when we are trying to make a living sharing our gifts in the world. These are the things we must have or do in order to realize value. Now, let's start at the left. And if you're overwhelmed, and I'm going too quickly, you have to have the finger on the fire hose and slow me down or speed me up or ask questions. But fundamentally, what you're looking at is you're looking at a little value chain here. And on the bottom right is the little legend to say which colors represent which aspects of our value chain. So the ones that are in that dark teal color, these are essentials that we absolutely must be doing in order to realize value from the way that we engage online. So to make a living, we need to. Now, there's some life musts. These are things I must do in life. I must have space and support. I must manage and care for my own self, and I must manage and care for my container, my relationships, and my home. And then there's some other musts here. If I want to make a living, I must make something. I must be able to package it. I must be able to sell it, and I must be able to deliver it. And in order to do these things, I have to do these things. In order to do these things, I have to do all of these, and so on and so on and so on. And what we're going to do is we'll just have a quick look here and say, and if I have to make something, I obviously have to have or buy things to make it with, and I have to have or develop skills to make it with. But I'm going to focus on just the selling piece, just the selling piece. And in order to sell something, I have to find, or I need to have a buyer or a market. In order to do that, I have to have engagement, or I need to build engagement. I need to have or attract attention, and I need to satisfy and delight customers. And in order to do that, I need to be relatable. I need to be memorable. I need to be appealing. This is a fact of life of doing business and selling. And in order to attract attention, I have to be discoverable in the first place, and I have to be visible. And in order to do these things, I need to do all of these, and so on and so on and so on. It's a lot of things. And some of these are technical. These are technical musts. And some of these require skills that are very, very difficult for a dancer or an artist or a creative or a philosopher to just suddenly become experts in. But this is the reality of what we have to do. Now, this invites us into two truths. The one truth is that we're better off collaborating with people, because there'll be people like I'm collaborating with Jim, because Jim has skills in the in some of this red stuff, and I have skills in some of the red stuff that Jim doesn't have, and we're better off pooling our efforts and resources to getting somewhere across the line than either of us would have alone. Now, here's the other thing that I want to bring to your attention. This is our world as an aligned human being, and look at what our competitors have to deal with. So everything that we had to do, they can just synthesize or steal or generate on AI. They don't have to be consistent. They don't have to be relatable. They don't have to be memorable. They don't have to be appealing. They don't have to be discoverable. They don't have to be visible. They can if they want to, because they can play a numbers game, not an essence game. And our amount of effort that we have to invest in this and their amount of effort that they have to invest in this is completely different. And some of the things that we call musts are just grayed out and could and optional for them, because they do not need to operate with integrity. They don't have to have a core message. They don't have to have a value proposition. They don't have to satisfy and delight customers. They just have to sell something once to one fool, and they just have to get some attention. And we are not sitting with an even playing field. And yet every single one of us that is sitting with this problem is trying to prove how we can look and act and show up as $1 million Los Angeles business with perfect production quality, perfect sound and lighting, perfect design, perfect website, perfect automation of flows. It's just not possible. And if it is possible, all of the additional effort and energy that you are investing into this and your sense of failure when you don't get it right is completely distorted. Completely distorted. Our natural competitors in this landscape, we don't like to think of them as competitors, but at the end of the day, if somebody else is stealing all the air out the room with memes and cat videos or TikTok videos or OnlyFans accounts, there is only so much human bandwidth that anyone can invest. And we're all trying to do business and make a living through the same keyhole. So does anybody resonate with this? I mean, feel free to raise your hand or to ask questions or to chime in or to say your piece. You know, just go ahead, just chime in if you do. You know, failure is what we call failure. We need to rethink. For example, I've been advertising this, I've been spruiking it and talking about it, and there must have been about 15, 20 people that signed up. And a handful of you blessed souls showed up, for which I'm hugely grateful. But this is a reality of the world. For all the 20 people you engage with, 2 are going to be genuinely interested. I've got nearly 4,000 people following me on Instagram. I have maybe 60 people that give a shit about anything. That's the world we live in. And everybody's busy and distracted, and they're human beings. And so when you've got one portal, one single portal to try and touch and reach people through, and your competitors are able to behave like this, and you are holding yourself to this ridiculously high standard, and you're not allowing this guy in the room, you're making something harder for yourself. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I think my lovely secretary has just brought me a cup of tea. Thank you, love. So, you know, that's really the synopsis of where we begin, is that it's an overwhelming expectation, and it's an overwhelming amount of things to do. And it's going to be even harder if we live and we keep sustaining and we don't challenge this expectation that everything needs to be polished and perfect. And so what I want to do is I want to look at a couple of visual models like this. Is this model helpful to anyone, by the way? Bethany and Letty and Cynthia, anyone?
I'll quickly chime in here.
Yes.
I just want to say that I think what is very helpful about it is to be able to lay out exactly what is needed, because one of the great challenges I think when you're starting anything is, you know, you hold all of this space in your head about all of the things that you need to know, or and all of the things that you know you definitely don't know, and then there's all of the things that you couldn't possibly know that you need to know
Yeah,
until
exactly,
you hit it.
exactly.
And certainly, I think it's necessary to surround yourself with people who have the knowledge of each compartment of this whole process, so that
Yeah,
yeah, so that you don't have to be the marketer and the product designer and
yeah,
the social media expert, all these things at
yeah.
once. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And what Jim and I are going to do is actually put together a very simple framework in a booklet, so that you don't have to have answers for all these things. Thanks, Bethany. You're right. And as this is kind of why we're all together, Bethany says, I'm here to find out what the things that I don't know that I need to know, which is exactly it. Because I believe this takes a village. You know, villages didn't used to, I'm living over here as the fisherman, and you're living over there as the apple grower, and you're living over there as the shoemaker, and we don't talk. I grow my own apples and make my own shoes and do all the fishing. What's the point of being a fisherman and a shoemaker and an apple grower? We need to be trading, and we need to be collaborating. And amongst us are ones that are better at writing. Amongst us are ones that are better at design. And the dream, I'm jumping ahead here, is to form a community of mutual interest where no one's trying to be the hero. Everyone's got their own livings to make. But I'm a bloody good writer, and Jim is bloody good at doing the mystic sorcery of Facebook and Instagram marketing and all the ads and all that. I hate that crap, but he knows what he's doing. Why would I go and build myself into being an expert on that? So the framework that we're going to put together is just going to lift out. So this is a picture at the moment, but next to each of these things is a little bit of technical advice or a little bit of direction to say, okay, how to be visible is X. How to be discoverable is Y. How to be appealing is something else. And it's not the final answer. It's the current best answer. And if a better answer arrives through the community, that goes into the evolving booklet or the evolving framework, so everybody can benefit. And I believe if we can't solve the problem that way, we won't be able to solve the problem. Anyway, I'll just continue, yeah, so we can have some flow. So what I've done is, one of the other things the project of a better way is looking at is a thing called UX, which is user experience. Hey, Cynthia. And the user experience is not just about user design or user interface or the product that you're sharing or how it looks. It's their experience and how they feel, the users. And trying to be human-centric about that again, and trying to put humans at the center of that experience. And so one of the things we've done is I took a look at the color palette and made sure it was something that I found soft and inviting. And also I put these little diagrams here of the direction of flow so that when a slide is busy, someone with a certain kind of neurodivergence or an ADHD or an attention deficit can, which a lot of us are on that spectrum, it's just a fact of life, cannot be overwhelmed because we've got a small little direction of flow to say, read this page like this. This is a zigzag page. So I'll just take you through it. I sat and asked myself, where am I? What's the nature of the problem? How do I get around this? And this is one of the answers that came to me. So what I've got is a little picture of Mount Olympus, which was the ancient home of the gods. And I realized that what we are struggling for is a form of influence, which is currency in this space. And in our Mount Olympus, there's two gradients. There's a number of people, and which is the dark color. So there's more people down here and fewer people up here. And there's more power distributed amongst fewer people over here and more influence and less, well, the same amount of influence, but it's distributed amongst much more people at the bottom. And if we look at the very, very, very top, in ancient Greek mythology, the first beings were not the gods. They were actually the titans and the monsters. And the gods actually fought against the titan and the monsters to eventually get top spot. And they made the titans and the monsters work for them. So, but where we are today is the titans and the monsters. To me, the moderators are the titans and the algorithms are the monsters. And this is the platforms that we are just at the mercy of. Absolute elemental forces that could go our way the one day and go against our way the next day. And then we have the Olympians. They're capricious, they're very human, it's like a soap opera, but they are the celebrities and the influencers with millions of followers. They don't have anything more interesting to say. In Greek mythology, the Olympians were not more noble, they were not holy, they were just more powerful. And then we've got the demigods, the people who like to be seen. They show pictures of their breakfast, they show pictures of themselves posing in front of anything, doing a dance in front of anything. And the sirens in Greek mythology were those mermaids who looked like beautiful women who sang these songs and drew people into the depths where they would drown. And this is, to me, the OnlyFans, the people who trade off on their looks but have no substance. And I mean, good for them, but how many do we need and what value is it adding to the world? And then my personal favorite are the priests. These are the funnel bros. These are the guys that are sitting on their Lear jets or walking out of a limousine or swaggering around like Andrew Tate with big gold rings and a cigar, telling you the process that you need to follow in order to be successful like them, and their success is usually cosmetic. It's also the marketing businesses that we shared earlier that are convincing everyone that they know exactly the formula. This is what priests used to do. Priests used to sit in the temple and add questionable value and convince everyone that they understood the will of the gods and they knew how the mystical forces worked, but you needed to go through them, because if you didn't work through them as intermediaries, you wouldn't get to touch the gods. But these are also page curators. So some of the priests are like just decent human beings. They're people that care about a certain topic or a certain interest group, and they curate pages. And then you get the aimless masses. These are people that are just there to have a look, be entertained, doom scroll, and they're generally unaware. They're unaware of where they sit in this. They're unaware of how all this works, and they're unaware that in this, below the tree line here, there are people that we are competing against, unfortunately, that have no cause. They're not coming from a heart-centered cause. They just want a slice of the pie. They don't even know why. And then there's us, the creatives, the people who are heart aligned, the soul entrepreneurs, somebody who is just trying to make their way in the world and wants to know, how do I take my petition, my request, and get it through the priests, through the demigods, up to the Olympians, so that I can conquer the titans and the monsters in my own life. And it's an impossible job. But we're going to talk about how we can get it done today. So this is another busy slide.
That was a genius diagram, Rocco. I loved it.
You say that again?
Just feel like that diagram in the last page was so, it was just so, everything about it is just so true. It's just
I know.
so
And it's like, I started writing this and then it just wrote itself, because I just thought to myself, oh my God, this is exactly how it works. I can just imagine in ancient Greece, somebody who actually has a sick auntie, who actually wants to have an olive farm business. They have to go to the same temple, get through the same nonsense, and it's all capricious. And the reason I chose the Olympian gods and the Greek mythology was that there's this myth, a myth that they were holier or nobler or better. It was like a soap opera. They were unscrupulous. There was no tact. There was no rhyme or reason sometimes. It's just chaos and mayhem.
Kardashians or something.
What's that?
Kardashians or something. And you mentioned
Yeah. It's kind of like this enormous reality TV that we're all part of. And we like to tell ourselves that, you know, we like to, as human beings, we like to believe in order and structure of any higher power. It's just in our nature. And so we attribute higher nature to all of this, where we don't realize that it's chaotic, that they're children, absolute children. And they're strumping around with all of this authority and power as if they know something, which they don't, of course. Anyway, I'll keep sharing if I can figure out how. Okie dokies. So where are we? So this now is what I believe is the fundamental root of the problem. Now, this is all quite a busy slide. So I'm going to pop over to this one because this makes it much simpler. And this one makes it even simpler. The question is, this door is functional. It's got all the things you need a door to do. You can get through it. It can swing open. Which door would you rather go through? Come on.
The pretty one.
The pretty one. There's parts about this pretty door which are, if you're just looking at cost and utility, they are redundant. But I want to talk about why this matters. And just sit with a minute and see how you feel. See how you feel. We're human beings. Tell me how you feel. Tell me how you feel walking through this door, and tell me how you would feel walking through this door. One of them, I can't even put it into words. There's a poetry to it, and there's so much. But you all know the internet that we have. How did we get here? We have a left and a right brain, ways of perceiving and engaging the world that is just a part of human nature that does not and will not and cannot go away. I want to go in the pretty door. It feels more welcoming. Door to the left is exciting and adventurous. The door to the left, the plain looking one, who said that? Ah, the door to
the right.
The door to the right. Okay. Oh my gosh. And Bethany
No,
said, well, nervous
definitely to the
walking
right.
through. Yeah, and Bethany said, I'd be a little bit nervous walking through the left. Although, Bethany, that is the door we encounter normally on buildings. And what does that do to your soul living in a world that looks like that? That's it. That's it. So I want to talk about what it means. Do not be overwhelmed by this slide, because that's exactly the point of left brain. Left brain gets overwhelmed. Left brain is not what people tell you, that it's all about maths and logic, and this one's all about creativity. That's nonsense. It's nonsense. I've got a book by Ian McGilchrist on the shelf, which is he's a psychologist and neurobiologist, which spent the last 10 years of his life proving that that's all absolute junk. And I can do a separate webinar on that. But to cut a long story short, the model of a logical side and a creative side of the brain is actually cartoonishly accurate, and it's outdated. And this matters to us. The left brain is self-centric. The left brain deals in facts and details, and everything, including other people, is a problem to solve. It values contiguity of experience. Things must all match and pair together. It can't deal with imagination. It happily retcons facts with pre-existing story. People literally watch an event playing out, and then you ask them what happened, and they will recount a version that matches their psychology, not what actually happened. And left brain believes everything in the world is either for me or against me. It objectifies people and objectifies everything. And the only subject in the world is self, and everything else is an object. That's what left brain does. It doesn't make you evil, it makes you human. Which means everything is either... Say again?
You also call that like ego?
It is very egoic. Yes. Everything is opportunity to the left brain. It's either threat, opportunity, or prey, or enabler of me. So it's either a threat or an opportunity to me, or it's prey for me, or it's an enabler of me. The right brain is non-self-centric. It doesn't mean it doesn't value self. It values self, but it's not at the heart and the middle of everything. It deals in imagination and symbolism and feeling. It understands that everything is connected. It values congruence. Congruence. And when you are looking at a story and reading a poem, and you're feeling that poem, the message touching you, that is because your soul is congruent with that feeling or congruent with that lesson. It's not contiguous. It's not clear, direct lines. It realigns its story with the reality that it encounters, and it's aware of the interconnectedness of all. And I know which of these two I want to lead my life from. I do not want to lead my life from the left. I want to lead my life from the right. And so, welcome whoever's joined. I just see iPhone there. So you're welcome to just say hi and tell me the name of who it is that's just joined. So what we're talking about is what I believe is the illness and the cure. And for the person who's just joined, might even be my wife. For the person who's just joined, sorry, it's me, Bethany, on my phone. Computer's dying. No problem, Bethany. This is what I believe the illness and the cure is that we're actually talking about today. The illness is where we just believe in functional form, in usability and utility over aesthetics, where we believe the design factor is ultimately decided by cost and a certain kind of effectiveness. And when we take right brain consideration into it, these two things do the same thing. There is functional form here, but there's also character and personality. And there's an aesthetic quality that goes beyond usability and utility. And what we all need to be caring about, and what we should understand of most importance, is how our ignorance of these differences is the source of very deep unhappiness in the world. Think of all the processes that frustrate you in the world. Think of the way everything is transactional. Think of the way all exchanges have no heart. There's no human at the center of any question anymore. It's always just getting a thing done so that there can be more. And if we said that soul is the human thirst and capacity for connection and purpose and belonging and vitality, from where we get all of our meaning, this is soulless and this has soul. And the source of our deep unhappiness in the world is our sense of depletion, of disconnection, of overwhelm, all things that you invariably feel when you are sitting in the middle of a shitstorm that we have today, and you are looking at the world and experiencing the world completely through this door. This is a lot of detail which I'll share in the booklet. But this is what I'm trying to say is the cause of we don't have mental health problems so much as we have spiritual health problems. And spiritual health isn't about crystals and candles. Spiritual health is about understanding that what matters most to us as human beings is things that have to do with soul. Putting the human at the center of an activity, human connection, connection with a moment, connection with purpose, connection, belonging, feeling like we belong, feeling like we're valued, feeling like we're seen. This is where we get our creativity and our vitality from. So I don't want to go too much into this, other than to say, this is why I think this is the core of the problem. I explained this in a slightly different way, which starts getting a little bit busy, and we won't talk about that now, but this is from another webinar series about user experience design. So there is an entire industry about young designers and developers looking at this intersectionality between design and development, where they are designing things. So this whole slide, in fact, is an example of UX, user experience. It's a philosophy of leadership whereby you cater to the human being at the heart of the process, or the heart of the machine, or the heart of the whatever it is, to make sure that that there's a form of meaningful connection. Now, we won't get into all of this, but I will talk to you about their project because I share the same example. So somebody who works with user experience, in other words, how they develop software apps or how they make Spotify or Netflix look and work, they ask themselves what's possible. They ask themselves what is feasible and viable, what can be done. This is from the financial and the technical teams. And then they ask themselves, as the delivery team who's going to make it happen, what is actually achievable? If you go through this door, the answer to those three questions is only ever influenced by a fear of overwhelm and a loss of control and a scarcity mindset. And if you ask these same prudent questions through this kind of lens, you arrive at answers which are in alignment with an abundance mindset, love of challenge and opportunity. And the challenge for Jim and I in putting these questions and these decks together, and the booklet that will follow in this webinar, and the podcast and the conversations that we'll be having, and the advice that we'd like to share and collaborate with you all on, is how we answer the questions through this door. And the problem with the left brain, right brain thing is that we made of this illness that we've created, we make of it a dungeon. And inside the dungeon, we take this cure, the soul, the right brain, the part of us that wants to be vital and creative and connect and share, and we imprison it in this cold, sterile, left brain form of engagement and process. Now, I'm going to jump around a little bit, and I'm going to take you to another diagram. So Jim and I spent a fair amount of time looking at all of this and struggling and getting things wrong and trying to work out what it was. And eventually we came down to these little post-it notes of things that matter. Think if what I learned so far, what we learned so far, if we had our time again, these are the pieces of gold that we wish somebody would have explained to us, and this is why we want to explain them to you. just going to keep an eye on the time. Is everybody keeping up so long? I don't want to lose anyone. The first thing we learned is to trust the stuckness. So we're all on these processes. We're trying to build our online businesses. We're trying to create videos, posts, adverts, copy, content, product, whether it's about art, whether it's about dancing, whether it's about writing, whether it's about poetry, whatever it's about. We keep getting stuck. We don't know the way. And the lesson that we discovered is that this is a journey, not a single outcome with a single result. And you have to retro and iterate everything that you're doing. You have to have these periods where you stop and you look back and say, what did I do well? What worked? What didn't work? What would I do differently if I had my time again? What would I keep doing? What would I stop doing? And what would I start doing? What did I accomplish? And then how can I build on that? How can I iterate off of that so that I can keep going on my journey and keep spiraling upwards and upwards and upwards? But I have to make peace with the fact that the stuckness was always telling me something about myself where I was out of alignment with my soul. Out of alignment with my soul. And there's this very thin line, of course, because on the one side, we have to trust the stuckness and keep forging along our journey and realize it's not a linear process. It's a form of unfolding. But by the same token, we walk a very, very thin knife edge of tenacity, because sometimes the world tells us that the right way to respond to these kind of problems is to just be tenacious, just keep going, just like a fly, trying to leave a house through a closed window. And if you look at windowsills, I like to say, are the eternal shrines to the small gods of trying, where one can always find more dead flies. Because that fly believed, like Sisyphus, in the power of tenacity. And I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to keep going. How can you keep going without reiterating, without looking back critically and discerningly at your successes and your failures, and figure out what it is exactly that contributed to that success or failure? Or tenacity can't be the only thing. And so how I distinguished that was, tenacity is not a virtue unless you are growing. And the only way to grow is to have moments of rest, moments of reflection, moments of serious questioning and asking yourself, is this the right thing? Is this the direction I ought to be going? Now, we'll keep coming back to these little post-it note lessons because they're extremely rich, and all of everything that we want to share can basically be transmitted in these tiny post-it notes. They're lovely, and each of these deserves a chapter of a book, which Jim is making me write. But there's some other things that we want to share with you. I want to talk about soul alignment. What is soul? Because I don't want to get spiritual here. So let's go through this little slide. Now, it's very important that somebody who is not innately resonant with an idea of spirituality doesn't get lost in this and think that this is about chakras and candles but as we saw with the picture of the door, we have a human experience that is not satisfied with just pure utility. And I said in the beginning of this little webinar, I said, what is soul? Soul is the human capacity and thirst. The human capacity and thirst. Here it's written here, the soul is nothing more than the human longing and capacity for vitality. We want to wake up in the morning punching the air. We want to feel, our body wants to feel that we belong and that we've got the energy and the will to do whatever it is that we came here to do. We want to be connected, because if we're not connected with people, what is the point of anything? If we're not connected to purpose, if we're not connected to our work, what's the point of doing it? We want to feel like we belong to our communities. We don't want to feel like we have to dance like show poodles, jumping through hoops to keep our followers on Instagram entertained, so that we only show them everything that dazzles them like magpies. We want to know that if we have an off day and we show up without makeup, without the right shirt on, with the wrong camera background, that those people care more about us and what we have to say and how we're feeling than they care about the show. And we want to be sure that whatever we're doing is connecting with our sense of purpose in life. It's not just some arbitrary thing that we're doing. I'm not building a brand so that I can also have a brand, or so that I can also be seen or heard. This is my life purpose. This is all I care about. And I don't want to be living in a world that isn't focused like that, or where I don't have the space to pursue that. And that is, to me, what soul is. It's the quality of interconnectedness into and all things, in and to all things. And it's a wellspring of vitality and creativity that we all want to tap into. Now, if you understand those things, swap whatever word you find easier in for soul. But when I say soul, and when I say soul alignment and soul retrieval, I'm talking about the retrieval of everything and the alignment of everything, which gets us closer to our sense of vitality, our sense of connection, our sense of belonging, our sense of purpose. And that is where we derive meaning in life. So soul alignment then is the enablement of our ability to pursue calling through our internal alignment and integrity, through our external alignment with what is real, what is true in the world, and by restoring and retrieving our sense of soul, that capacity for vitality and creativity, which is kept in trust in our psychology. And a little picture on the right helps me understand what people like to chalk up in only spiritual terms as something which is universal. And this is why I say I think we have less mental health problems than we do spiritual health problems, because none of this has to be woo-woo. But if soul is what we've just discussed now, which is the way in which we pursue our interconnectedness with the world and our groundedness in it, and our spirit is something that's reaching up towards our purpose, towards our sense of meaning in the world. That's all we need to be able to understand what is being talked about here when we say soul alignment. And if you are feeling stuck in your work, if you are feeling isolated in this challenge on how to make your gifts live in the world, if you're feeling depleted, like you don't have enough energy, you don't have enough resources inside of you, if the overwhelm and the noise and the enormity of the problem, that spaghetti diagram with all the musts and shoulds and coulds that you need to learn and know to function as an entrepreneur online, if it overwhelms you and makes you feel anxious, this is what it feels like to be missing or not coming from soul. And there's a quote I love to share. It's by an Indian teacher. His name was Jiddu Krishnamurti. He said, "It's no sign of good health. It's no measure of good health to be well adjusted in a profoundly sick society or a profoundly sick environment." And so the unwellness that we feel, perfectly normal, actually, considering that people with no soul have designed the processes that we're trying to navigate. So soul retrieval then is just the welcoming home of the parts of ourself and our innocence and our vitality and our sense of self-permission that we lost along the way as young people trying to belong to a world that couldn't respect us. And I'll share these notes with everyone. You know, in moments of shame and trauma, we're so desperate to belong, and we're so conditioned to these outer agreements of what it means to be successful and good in the world, that we inadvertently reject parts of ourselves in order to belong. And in each of these moments where we abandon little bits of ourselves along the journey, and we hide that whole memory of it behind shame, and those pieces of ourselves are pieces of our vitality that lie strewn along the long winding road of our journeys. And they're waiting to be reclaimed. And that's a project. And it's a project that's not just made in a snap decision. It's a project you have to commit yourself to over a long period of time. And the beautiful thing is, ladies and gentlemen, it is a project you can pursue through your struggling with your work. Your craft becomes a beautiful vehicle, a boat almost, that you can sail across these choppy, troubled waters, like Odysseus in his labors as he was trying to make his way home to Penelope. You can actually retrieve your soul. That's actually what that story was about. It was Odysseus had been to war in Troy, but he couldn't go directly home. He had to take the circuitous journey home because there were things he needed to do. He needed to disintegrate the angry, destructive warrior persona, and he needed to reintegrate the human, the man, the hero, so that he could come back to his wife and become king again in Ithaca. This is getting back to our story of the Olympian gods. And that was a story of soul retrieval. He was getting bits of himself back and going through these little boss fights. And the point is, we don't have to stop our work and our efforts to make a powerful, meaningful dent in the world through our gifts. We can actually practice soul retrieval through that activity. And that's what the spirit of a better way is. You know, and then there's other projects which we can share, which are about, it's not just getting something back that you had or that you lost. It's also about realizing your potential, like that tree. It's about growing up towards the light as well. And this can happen in relationships, in meals, in our families, in our work projects, in the content we create. Businesses can have soul. A relationship can have soul. A mealtime can have soul. A Thanksgiving dinner can have or not have soul. And this can become the core focus and ongoing practice of a beautiful life and a beautiful journey. Now, I want to just get back to this little scary diagram quickly. This horror show, yeah, that we looked at earlier. If it were easy, everyone would be doing it. By doing it, even when it's thankless, even when it seems to break us somehow, by falling down and getting up, by picking ourselves up and choosing love and choosing courage again and again and again and again, and not choosing the low road, this is how we find a way. We find our way. There is no other way. It's not in a book. Even this webinar is beautiful. It's not in this webinar. This webinar is just here to remind you that we need to collaborate whilst we're having our personal odysseys of getting home to ourselves and getting home to our purpose. And it's through that we actually make a way. There's a beautiful saying by Antonio Machado. He goes, "Waymaker, there is no way. Waymaker, pathmaker, there is no path. The path is made by walking. By walking, the path is made." If it were easy, everyone would do it. And everyone's doing it badly and in a way that's exactly causing the sickness that we're trying to get away from. It is the rock that we're trying to chisel ourselves out of. By doing it, even when it's hard, by falling down and getting up and choosing that. This form of tenacity that is love, not a form of tenacity that is fear or ignorance. This is how we find a way. and we make a way for others to follow. This is leadership. And this is the spirit of this webinar and the project of a better way. Because I'm struggling. I don't get reduced to tears, but I'm not far from, because I'm struggling to provide for my family. And the world that I'm struggling to do that in is sick and twisted and broken, and it feels so wrong. And there's a wounded child in me that feels abandoned and neglected, and I have to keep picking myself up again and again and again and again and again. This webinar was an example. I am so appreciative that you folks joined today. But my heart wanted 60 people. My heart wanted 100 people. My heart wanted 1,000 people. I had to pick myself up and say, this is it. This is how you get there. This is how you get there. You talk your talk, you walk your walk, you figure out what you could have done better next time, you get up and you keep talking from leadership and you keep talking from love. That is lived courage. And that is who I want to be. And that is the infectious beauty that I want to share. That is what I want to go viral in the world. Yes. Okie dokies. So this is the next thing we're going to talk about today, unless anybody has any questions. And please chime in with questions. There's nothing more debilitating to the soul than talking into a camera for 40 minutes. How are we doing so far? Is this landing? Is it touching people? Is it ticking boxes? Good. I'll take that as a positive yes. Now, we were talking about Odysseus and his ship. And so what I've got is a little tail end of an aeroplane or of a ship over here, which is based on a diagram that came to me. And a friend of mine, Rowan, he's very gifted in the space of coaching. Thanks, Simon. Thanks everyone for the thumbs ups. Of coaching CEOs, leaders of businesses. And the beautiful thing is what he's introducing is the idea of craft, because all these leaders of businesses are completely the sociopathic, narcissistic products of left brain process, left brain thinking, soulless engagement, profit, growth, numbers, charts, spreadsheets. They've lost the human at the middle of their project. And he's trying to put it back. And he pointed out to me that what we're actually working on, whether you're a CEO or a dancer or an artist or a marketing agency, is craft. Craft. And what it takes to invest in a craft is this: devotion and vulnerability. Devotion, you have to invest in self-development for years. You have to study, you have to practice, you have to experience, you have to invest costs of time, energy, and attention over years to achieve the capacity, the capability, the fluencies, the skills that you have today. That is devotion. And then when you try and produce a webinar, a booklet, a poem, a dance class, a yoga, or whatever it is vulnerability in practice, because you have to invest effort to produce it and be measured there and then by an undiscerning world on the value of what you've just done. That is vulnerability. Now, the devotion is measured in years. And your vulnerability, your product or your service that you're trying to push through the door, whether it's a piece of art or something else, is measured in hours or days. It takes days, sometimes weeks, to produce that and to push it through the door. And there is a grade here between low and high and low and high. And on this side, you've got our competitors. And everything in the world on the internet is telling you what to do is just hit the numbers, friend. Okay, bros. So what you want to do is you want to get the sales funnel going. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. And it's just this formulaic pap that makes me want to throw up in my mouth. And they don't need to have any devotion to craft. They can just substitute what you have to invest vulnerability in with capacity and quantity. And this is how we're being told to connect with our people. And it's broken because my craft is not just content. It's not all content. This is content and this is content, but this takes craft, and this is just some commodity that anyone can rinse, repeat. Anyone can copy. Anyone can make the AI do. And this is where the people are concentrated, at this confusing nexus, and nobody quite knows. And what are they looking for? They're looking for success, and they're looking for the path of least resistance. So artists lean into their craft, and people without soul lean that way. And I'm here to say, don't go there. And Jim's here to say, you still need a bit of that. Because if you don't have a bit of that, not only is this wasted, but then they win it all. You've still got to be in the numbers game. You've still got to have that as part of your reality. Now, what this means, this little picture, is on this side, the discernment of value between this and this. This is how these people think, and this is how these people think. On this side, it's soul and gratitude. On that side, it's ego and scarcity. On this side, it's qualitative. It's about essence. On this side, it's quantitative. And so we go down the list. Nothing on this side is pretty. Everything on this side fills my cup. But this is a harder journey because this takes devotion and vulnerability, and this takes neither. But I still know which path I want to choose. So this is how it comes out in the wash now, you see, is the market split, the people, the volume of human beings are here. They don't have discernment. They can't tell the difference between craft and commodity. And for every 1 million people, there's 10,000 that are in the middle of the road, and there's maybe 10 that share our heart and our soul for every 1 million people. But luckily, there's 8 billion people on the planet. And it's never a straight line either. Because, you know, when it comes to cars or music, when it comes to cars, I'm probably down here. And I'm the same human being. But when it comes to music, oh boy, I can't actually take this line far enough into the side. But there are some things I'm better and worse at. Like Simon is a friend of mine on the call. He's a musician. He teaches music and he's trained, and his abilities and his ear for it. I mean, he can sit down and just start improvising. I can't even tell the difference between two instruments sometimes. But I can tell harmony. But there's certain technical things that I can't tell. And it's a crapshoot when we're trying to reach our people, because the target is much wider here because there's more people. And the target a little bit narrower and very narrow here. But that actually, the wider target is easier to aim at and easier to reach. But Arthur Schopenhauer said, talent hits a target no one else can reach, and genius hits a target no one else can see. And I came across these beautiful words the other day. It said, don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive. What makes you come alive? And then go and do that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Now, this is a fact. This is how humans are distributed in the world. This is a busy slide, but there's a little direction here that says go around this way. So let's begin here. We begin with the Fibonacci, the golden section, the curve. This is the natural curve in nature. And we know that the relationship between the volume here and the volume here is 1 to 1.6. And so if we take this little very simple diagram of our Olympian mountain that we looked at right in the beginning, and we take that and we make it into a pyramid, and then we shave the edges off and we make it into a cylinder, we get a cone. Sorry, not a cylinder, a cone. So I've gone from Olympian mountain to pyramid to cone. Yeah. So that I can track these kind of numbers. And the different part of a cone is that this is actually bigger than that. This is the higher volume than this, because this has got a wider base. There's more people here than there are here. A little bit more than half. Now, if we take all the people on the planet and we divide them up, this is where the 4.9 bulk of people are, 4.9 billion. This is a smaller group, that's a smaller group, that's a smaller group. And the people that we're trying to reach are this little tiny, which then you take this top cone and you split it up again. Making sense? Because remember, we want to hit our people, but we want to realize, we think we're down here. We're not, we're actually here. And our aim is to meet the other people who are also here.
If only you could do that on my dating profile app too.
100%. It's exactly the same problem. It's exactly the same problem. People with the same spiritual inclination, people with the same political sensibility that we have, people with the same ideas of love as we have. It's always this. So the target is actually not to find the other little dot in the base. It's the wrong idea. The target is to find our little group of people. Because you don't need 1 million followers, you need 10. Maybe you need more than 10, but you know what I'm saying. It's not the big number, it's the small number. And this little tiny center of the bullseye, if this is consciousness that you share with other people, and this is the number of people, you want the red hot group that share and see the world the way you do. And the only way they're going to find you, the only way they're going to understand that you exist, is if you are vulnerable, soul aligned, and you are not playing the same game as everyone else. Consciousness is higher at the top. It's not higher at the top. There is just fewer people to share the consciousness with at the top. So the per capita consciousness at the top is more per person. The same amount of consciousness exists here, but there's 4.9 billion people sharing the same amount of consciousness as these 275 million people, as these people. This is how the world works. Winston Churchill said the biggest argument against democracy is a conversation with the average voter. If you just go walk up to somebody who's the average voter and you have a conversation with him about what do you think we should do about baby incubators in hospitals or about the war in Palestine, they will give you an emotional ejaculation that is based entirely on what they were told to believe off social media or news. And it's not because they're bad, it's because they're currently unevolved in an area that you are evolved in. And it's the same with dating, Sasha. Ideas of masculinity and femininity and dating and love and romance and safeness and psychological maturity, these are nuanced ideas that are not widespread. So what do we do? What do we do? The problem is the size of the target. So we've got all the people on Earth. Then we've got the 5.8 billion internet users. Then we've got the 373 million English speakers. And then we've got people who are aged somewhere between 25 and 65. Not to say that you can't reach people outside of that, but it's very unlikely that you'll be doing business with people younger than 25, because then you aren't discerning, or unless that's your niche market, or you're doing business or trying to influence or change the minds of people who are probably set in their ways at a certain age. This is not an ageist statement. This is, you have to choose your battles. And this could be wider or smaller. The size of my circles could be slightly incorrect, but the story that the slide tells is always going to remain exactly the same, is that the bullseye that you are trying to reach is an intersection of an intersection of an intersection of an intersection. And then if you take that little cone diagram and you break it up like this again, your people, there's still, even though the pool is actually 373 million, and a slice and a slice and a slice of that, we're still talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of potential people that you can touch and engage. And remember, with this little diagram here, this group can talk to that group. And this group can talk to that group and that group. So the size of your pool is actually the pool that you're in. I think I'm here somewhere, right? And I think I can reach these people and I can reach these people. And as I build my craft and up my game, I can move up in whatever area of value and alignment, because there's not just alignment this way, there's also alignment this way. Yeah? Yes, it's a spiral. And I can also be on the outside of that ring and undiscerning, or I can be over on the left or over on the right. But it's to be in the middle, the uncomfortable middle where leaders operate, the ability to hold paradox that makes me more inclined to connect with people up and down the pyramid. This is formulaic, and we can speak about this for hours. But the point of it is that this is how we reach our people. And this is how we find this impossible target in this incredible bullseye over here. And the way that I saw this problem was like the Death Star with little Luke Skywalker. He had to hit this little tiny hole in a trench, little thermal port. But then again, he also believed that he could bullseye womp rats in his T-16 back home, and they're not much bigger than 2 meters. And our stories are always telling us about the impossible. Our task is already impossible. Our task is already impossible. If you put it down on paper, it's like winning a lottery. There's millions and millions and millions of people. And not only are there millions of people, they're not all online when you're online. And the internet algorithms don't only serve everything of relevance to the right people, they just spray everything everywhere. And if you're dealing with the social media like Instagram, they don't spray everything everywhere. They dampen your message because they find attraction and value in the TikTok videos and the dancing with the boobs out and the men with Lamborghinis, and they're not interested in substance, but somebody in the world is. Somebody in the world is. And this is what Jim's lesson is to me. Even though this can't be a left brain utility numbers question, we are not going to win that race without some of that prudence, because you still have to climb the mountain. You still have to put your petitions in at the temple. You still have to be seen, see and be seen. You still have to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back actually to these now with a little bit more perspective, and we're going to share what this looked like. Let me do this again. So we said commodity is not craft. We learned that. And there's a lot that stems off of this. Is that to have followers is less important than to have an engaged community. But the thing that I've started figuring out is it's not all on us. It is not all on us. The problem is we have started to believe that it is all on us, that we have to have all the answers. I have to become a professional video editor. I have to make my videos look like they're produced in $1 million studio. My sound quality has to be perfect. I have to look perfect. My teeth have to be perfect. My hair has to be perfect. My script has to be perfect. I have to fit it all into 90 seconds. I have to say just the right words. I have to be an expert in copy. I have to be an expert in web design. I have to be an expert in marketing. And now we believe this insane nonsense. Now we believe shows used to grow. Shows used to grow. South Park. I'm not talking about my favorite shows. I'm talking about shows that became institutions. The Simpsons. The first animations were crude, but they developed a following that enjoyed and watched the show evolving and growing as it went. Now you get shows for children like Paw Patrol or Octonauts, or if you don't know what this is, bless you, you're in good company. But now these shows are all developed like Pixar movies with perfect animation, perfect sound scores, perfect voice acting, perfect everything, and then they just appear just like that. And you are expected also now, this is what you need to do. You are expected to just immediately have it all and be it all. And while the world is making you nervous and anxious and afraid of all the things that you're not enough of, you are completely blind to what you are a lot of, your actual value. And you don't show the leadership to your community and your people and legitimize the fact that, excuse my French, fuck that noise. This is not a normal way for humans to operate. The apple farmer, if his shoes are broken, it's because he hasn't got a good relationship with a cobbler, and vice versa. We can't all be everything. And trying to pretend we are is what's thinning us out and making us feel depleted and making us feel anxious and making us feel unworthy. And the game is an arms race to the bottom. And you know who doesn't feel your scruples? The person who can use AI to generate or steal someone else's art or copy someone else's copy. The person who doesn't care about craft, who doesn't care about soul. They're not sitting waiting up at night with your bullshit. They are just getting on with it, stealing all the air out the room. And here we are playing the gentleman's game. And not only are we playing it with one hand behind our back, and we have the imagination that we need to be trained like a UFC fighter with a perfect physique, perfect hair, perfect form, perfect this, perfect that. It would be like a UFC MMA fighter who trained himself, has to work his own diet out, fit all of that training and boxing and sparring and grappling and understanding and support and management and nutrition and physical therapy and everything, whilst trying to run a family, raise a toddler, figure out, how he's going to get enough money to take his wife on holiday. And then when he doesn't perform in the ring, all the commentators just go, well, you can just see how he was standing there. That was never going to work. It's so easy. And our failure is not our failure. Our failure is when we jump on the side of the oppressing, dominating, undiscerning critics. And we start devaluing our value and devaluing our effort. And we start not making space for vulnerability and not making space for how humans show up. It is the corporate world has taught us to be professional all the time and show a face. And through that, we have taught younger people who will look to us for example and for leadership that human feelings and the human experience actually isn't allowed. There's no room for it. And I'm going to start taking that back, because that can't be the better way. It cannot be the better way. So we're getting close to the end of our time together now, but I thought if we just look at the central one, commodity is not craft, we have to realize that appeal is fickle. What appeals to someone today, they're just in a bad mood tomorrow, which means positive feedback is less important than honest feedback. But it also doesn't mean that everyone who gives us honest feedback is a discerning human being that we should take their opinion seriously. If it's not all on us, what is on us? What is our responsibility? Our responsibility is coherence and articulation and congruence and soul alignment. Our craft and finding out how we make it live in the world is our responsibility. Them, the audience, they have to start giving a shit. They have to care, and they have to understand the difference between commodity and craft. So part of the project of A Better Way and the murmuration, which we'll talk about maybe another time, is it's talking about this story here that I'm about to show you. Leaders understand the sickness and they understand the cure, and they will not allow the way that they reach people to undermine their intentions. These are the generators, the creatives that I'm talking to. This is someone who lives with a pledge that says, I generate and create content as a way to share my gifts with the world. I'd like my work witnessed and appreciated because I think it matters to the world. These are my people, our people. But we can collaborate with these people. Now, the beneficiaries, people who are supporting us in our work but aren't directly involved, are the managers, the people who curate a page or a feed or promote an idea that I care about, and I engage with my community. I won't sell my soul. I can work with these people. The supporters, I'm here to be inspired, but I am discerning. And I take the time to engage with managers and with generators. These are the people I want to work with. But they need to take a pledge as well to say that I can put my hand on my heart and say, I am here to be inspired, but I'm also discerning, and I take the time to engage with managers and generators. And if I don't, I get the internet that I deserve. And then we get the masses who are just here to be inspired, to be entertained, to be distracted. They don't feel they need to engage. They don't feel any responsibility or culpability because a decade of streaming services have taught them they don't have to do anything. They just sit there and plug the suction cup on their face, and the feed just comes like pigs in a trough. And below them is the players and the agents. And that person says, I create and share other people's work for likes to grow my account. I don't actually have anything to say. I post what I think will get the right traction. And below them, you get the opportunists, the influencers. I want my share of the pie. I understand that. But I didn't design the system or its flaws. I'm just playing the game to win. Hands clean. Completely part of the problem, completely reticent of the solution. And then you get the hunters, the sales funnel bros. My business is selling. How to sell sales funnels. I'm a Ponzi scheme selling Ponzi schemes. I'm a pyramid scheme selling pyramid schemes. Everyone is a lead. And they want you to behave like this. Quantity over quality, volume over essence. And then you get the liches, not leeches. A lich in fantasy role-playing like Dungeons and Dragons was a kind of spirit that fed off the life force of other beings. And their essence is, I want to win the game. I am chasing status via admiration, attention, wealth, and power. Any means necessary. Lie to them if you have to. So that's like a Donald Trump kind of character. Say what you got to say, do what you got to do, left brain, everything is quarry, everything is an object to me. The only subject in the world is me. It's not all on us. If we can't find people in the supportive level to understand that they have to make a pledge of discernment and of behavior. They have to care a little bit. Imagine if the only answer that we have is how professional I can be, how consistent I can be, how much more I can create, how much more I can give, how much more beautiful I can write my copy, make my website, produce my content, make my videos. All the responsibility is on me. And I'm a human being, and I have limits. And I'm not $1 million production company, and I don't want to pretend to be one, because pretending to be one shows people that are looking to me for example that I'm living a lie, and I want them to live a lie too. And we all need to play Emperor's New Clothes together so that no one can pretend to be human and no one can have the freedom to be vulnerable. And everybody has to kill yourself trying to outcompete what you cannot compete with. Do you really, really want to put yourself at the mercy of people that do not value you? I don't. But again, as Jim will remind us, that utility still matters. You still need to get your hands dirty playing some of the game. You can dance your way out of the dance and you can play your way out of the game, but you still have to be in there. If you want to reach people, you still have to run an advert that touches 6,000 people to get 6 that are interested. That you cannot change. But your current compromise is not your permanent compromise. And as your circle grows and your influence grows the right way, trust me, the audience and the community that you build that way are like solid rock. We mentioned earlier on that success isn't a formula. We all have different starting points. We have a different landscape we're traversing. We have different blessings and handicaps. We do. And what worked for X won't necessarily work for Y. This is why we need to work together. Timing matters, and we should see this as catching and riding waves, like a surfer trying to get into shore. You can ride against the current, you can work against the tide, but it's so much easier if you work with it. And there's better and worse times. And I can't tell you what they are all the time, but we will work them out together. Now, there's lots of little bits of advice here that I want to share. But before our time is up, I want to open it to a bit of conversation, actually. And I want to share what the landscape is that we're working on, because we want to get the creatives and entrepreneurs. This is how I want to do business. I want to get creatives and entrepreneurs into my value stream. But I also want to have a social movement which affects aligned supporters and teaches them to understand that they have some culpability and responsibility here too. And then we want to get technical enablers, designers, coders, editors, producers, marketing specialists like Jim. People who want the right thing done, but who have adjacent and complementary skills. And we need to form in communities of practice. And then we need to get patrons, people that can boost these signals, who also are tired of the sickness and would like things to be better in the world. And we've got a whole charter here of core principles and beliefs that we'd like to share over time. And we've got our intentions of calling out the problem, helping to guide creators restore soul, how to educate the public on their accountability, how to stand for something, how to heal the healers and give people rehabilitation pathways from the sickness that they've been forced to endure and trying to run a business online, how to help others, how to form a community and facilitate social change and support each other in this journey, and how to lead the way and to find others and keep this thing growing. So I don't want to give you too much of that. Maybe I'll release a video afterwards and with Jim and I and talking about this, literally just sharing it, and invite you all to the Journey podcast and the Journey newsletter as we keep unfolding and unpacking these things. And one thing we'll be sharing with you in a booklet. So we offer supplementary services, Jim and I, which have to do with brand and business alchemy. In other words, how you can align your brand, how you can align your design, how you can align your copy and your website and your processes, and get the creative support, get the copy, improve your productivity and responsiveness and your evolution. We can lead people through that. And we can also lead people through the corporate rehabilitation, the frameworks and tools for soul retrieval, how you enhance your creativity and your flow, and how you access the inspiration that I poured into this work today, and how we can share resources for getting and staying aligned. So this is the project of a lifetime, but we wanted to make sure that you're aware that it doesn't end here. This is just the beginning. It's just the beginning. And I'll be running actual soul alignment and soul retrieval workshops, teaching practices and giving people reminders on how to stay the course and how to keep finding this courage inside yourself. And then there's one last thing I think it's prudent to share, is what we'll release in a booklet, actually, is this. We've got a little shorthand navigation guide for travelers on the journey with 7 points. And we've got each one unpacked. What play means, what consistency means, trusting the stuckness, congruence, form and flow, sighting, discernment, and how this all hangs together here. And this is the kind of thing that you can put up on your wall or keep on your desktop or make ready to hand. And we'll share this with you, with all the folks that came through today. And the beautiful thing is, all of this is about alignment. Because if you take all of these 7 things, some of these are to do with how we align with the outer world and with reality. Some of these are how we align to our truth internally. This is how we align with our integrity, and this is how we align with our authenticity. And number 7 in the middle is discernment, how we tell where we're off and where we're out of alignment. And so we've got a few things we'll package together in a PDF and make sure that you can download. We'll send you an email and remind you to go to the website. And from the website, you'll be able to leave your reviews about how you shared this experience with us today, and get a copy of the PDF. And please know that the PDF, was I sharing that whole time or not? Was I? What am I doing? I've lost it, I think. What have I done? If I wasn't sharing before, that's what I was trying to discuss with you. It was this. Was I sharing this a minute ago? No. So sorry, what I was trying to talk about was the fact that we've put some stuff together that we will be putting into a booklet, including some of these key diagrams and what we want to share as a navigation guide. In other words, a little bit of a reminder as we make this journey of what we think matters in this journey and how to keep on the journey, and what play, consistency, trust, the stuckness, congruence, form and flow, and sighting means, and why discernment is so important to soul growth. And then we've got a small detail on each of these, which we will share. We'll make sure the PDF is available to you all. And then we put them all together here. And the point that I was trying to make, which you wouldn't have been able to follow because I wasn't sharing, was that some of these things like play and sighting is to do with our outer alignment, our alignment with reality in the world. Trusting the stuckness and congruence is about our inner alignment to our truth and ourself. Consistency is aligning with integrity, and form and flow is how we align with our authenticity. And then smack bang in the middle is our discernment, which is the act of appreciation in action. So all of this is about gratitude, and it's the kind of stuff which is universally applicable to anyone in any way that you're trying to build and shape your business. What the point of all that was, let me stop sharing and have it look you straight in the eye. The point of all of that is that anyone who tells you that they've got an answer, or the answer, or the only answer, or the right answer is full of shit. This has to be an unfolding truth that we arrive at and we share, and it has to be evolving. So this is going to be version 1, and it will keep growing. And I can guarantee you, knowing the kind of human being that I am, I'm already looking at marketing and engagement, and I'm looking at user experience. Someone's going to come with another question, and I'm going to lean into that. And this is going to become a growing body of relevance of how we find a better way, how we make business beautiful again, how we restore soul to our projects, how we bring back vulnerability, how we reprioritize humanity and connection and purpose and belonging, because I don't know how else to do it. It's the only way, and it matters to me. And there's a little, before I open to questions, there's a little piece that I wrote. It's part of a longer poem, but just the excerpt, it says, embark with me, no need to bring anything with you. No need to bring anything with you. Your wounds and your dearest cares are all the map and stars you shall ever need to chart your course, and the shape love makes when you hold it in your heart, the only compass. Listen, listen, listen. The great journey will entrust to you new tools, new duties, new language, and teach you how to mend the nets and how to rig the sails of the ones you already have. And Odysseus didn't make that journey on his own. He had helpers along the way. He had friends and crew and supporters. And each of us are only going to make that journey if we start doing what no one else is doing. Everyone is trying to build this on their own. Everyone is trying to be the hero that they're looking for. Everyone is trying to be everything. And that is part of a lie. And I'm here to tell you, if you reach out to me and you join this community, not everything that we exchange is going to involve money, but obviously some of the things that we exchange will. I need to make a living too. But I'm not here to make money. I'm here to make a living sharing my gifts in the world, as are you. And I don't have the gifts that you have, and you don't have the gifts that I have. And the only way we beat that enormous, ugly engine out there is through everything that soul means, which is connection, vulnerability, staying our purpose, and like living that in the form of an interdependent community. I even have frameworks for healthy forms of revenue sharing for when people are collaborating together, because we don't need the whole pie. I just need a slice. I just need enough. And enough is not an amount, it's a decision. Enough is a decision. But I want to be able to make that decision from a place in my heart without the fear of paying bills and never being seen and never being appreciated for my gifts hanging over my head. So, so yeah, that's my piece for now. For now. And there's so much more. I mean, Jim was pointing a sharp stick at me. I've literally got, I kid you not, 80 slides. And I think we looked at about 13 of them. And there's a lot. There's a lot to cover. Now, I would like to hear from you about your journeys and your thoughts. And what I will be doing is Jim and I will send you a very simple, very clunky survey afterwards. Basically says, did you get value from this? And what do you think we could do better next time? Sort of a thing. You know, what would you have liked to see more or less of? But
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
No, go for it. Go for it.
Me?
Oh,
You
Bethany.
go.
okay. I really appreciate you sharing your time and wisdom with us today. I heard about you through Nicholas Gregoriades' podcast about a month ago. And so I started following you, and I've really loved the episodes of your podcast that I've listened to.
That's
So I
great.
really,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. I'm a massage therapist, and I don't use social media for reaching out to people. It's my whole career has been word of mouth. And so I was curious if using social media is something that I should start doing. I'm not sure. So
Yeah, look, sorry, go on.
oh, I'm not good at social media. I personally, I don't like to spend more than 10 minutes a day because it drains me. But if there's a way to get around all that negative stuff that you talk about, maybe there's value for me to expand and start using it. I don't know.
I think in some ways you're probably healthily insulated from a lot of the sickness that a lot of us are not. I live in Perth, Western Australia, and Perth is quite strongly like a soul dead, sterile populace and environment. So the chances of me being able to share my gifts locally by word of mouth, very, very difficult, because the folks are quite undiscerning, and anybody who waves a crystal or wears a tie-dye pair of pants is considered, a worthy spiritual leader. And over here, it's all about cacao ceremonies and people speaking very breathlessly like this. And people lap that shit up. And so for me, word of mouth would be very complicated. And I realized that my people are not here. They're everywhere. And I do so many things, I wouldn't know how to spread all of that word of mouth. Plus, I think you're fortunate that you've attracted a kind of community that does talk about it. And you obviously have a beautiful offering and value in the world that people feel called to share. People don't know what to make of me. I do so many things and I have so many offerings, and the offering is evolving. They wouldn't even know how to articulate it, number one. And number two, people don't give a shit. They come there literally with their own problem. And mine isn't. My practice, or some of us on the call, might not have the kind of calling or service where it's yoga. It's teaching meditation. It's a little bit more nuanced. How do I explain I'm a philosopher that takes diseases and illnesses and pains in the world and transmutes them into solutions, but always puts self-ownership and at the heart of it? I mean, oh, you're a coach.
Yeah.
No, I'm not a coach. They just want to find a tail to pin on the donkey, and the word never quite fits. So if anyone else is in that place trying to create something new that doesn't exist, what language do you use? What language does someone who doesn't know use? So if you're fortunate enough to not need to use social media, good for you, because the form of connection, the organic connection that you're getting, is actually what we all want. And so part of the project that Jim and I are working on, and hopefully we're going to collaborate with more people, is getting a group of us together every time and sitting down with one person's question and going, what do you do? Just say it badly, and we will help the person craft, okay, this is how you distill it and this is how you say it. Because there's wisdom in what to do and how to put a message together. And if we ever want to be better, because I think you obviously have some win in that formula or in that space, but I'm struggling because I don't know how far to dumb things down or how to simplify it without losing something. But it's going to take the wisdom of a village, all the village of voices, to sit together and say, hey, I think this is, focus more on this, focus more on that. And then none of that is the right answer. All we can then do, as Jim and I say, is iterate. You try something, and then you gauge how, more, less, better, worse. I don't know if that helps you hone in on a sense of an answer there. Now, I've got a hard stop on the hour. I'm going to have somebody waiting for me on another call, but I'd love to have another couple of questions. Sasha, you had something?
Well, I was just going to say that, what I really got out of today is I tend to give up. Like I tend to just want to just go, oh, I can't figure it out. And whoever finds me, and kind of do that sort of thing. But I really like the idea of a think tank getting together and brainstorming together, or whatever you were just saying, that would be a useful, helpful thing. And it does start to feel isolated and alone in that, having a community, and because people will approach me about collaborating with them, and I'll start to go, yeah. And I get into the conversation, and then it becomes that other thing. And I'm like, I'm not aligned with that. I can't do that with you. You know what I mean? And I find that happens a lot for me. So.
Okay, Simon. Simon's just saying goodbye. No, I totally understand. And I think one thing we're going to be starting pretty soon is going to be a small, like a member pledged circle where we can start putting some of this into practice. And this is exactly what I'm offering to lead, is that form of business alchemy. Now, some of it's going to be direct one-on-one business consulting, which is going to attract one kind of price. But I think this kind of membership will be a different sort of thing. And Jim and I will work it out and see what we push out the door. Folks, I'm going to try and... Is there any other question? Any other comments? Cynthia, I saw you were taking notes like a fiend. Yes.
I really enjoyed the concept. I really like the left brain and the right brain. Challenging that definition is really important. And I'm like looking for, what am I going to do next? And so I think this has been really helpful to, how can I get unstuck and figure out what else I'm going to do with the rest of my life? So this has been good. And I want to thank Sasha for tuning me into you.
As always, if anybody wants to book time with me and go over that, I mean, it's so easy. Just go to my website and, you can book a half an hour exploratory call and see if I can help you around that, because my vocation is helping people with stuckness. There you go. I did it. That's it. I help. I solve stuckness.
Yeah.
I help you to solve your stuckness by guiding you to healing and leading yourself. Anyway, ladies and Jim, thank you so much. Big kudos to you for week after week after week collaborating on this with me. Thank you, everyone. Sasha, I know that you shared this with folks. I really appreciate that. That, in fact, most of this came through word of mouth, through Nick or through Sasha or somebody. So all the investment that I made in those people earlier on looks like some of that's coming home to roost. And I've learned a lot from this process, and I'll be sharing my thoughts and the booklet and stuff with everyone after this. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope to see you back for other of these sorts of engagements.
Thank you so much.
Have a lovely day. Take care. Bye-bye.